All right, today we're diving into an idea that is, well, it's pretty out there. What if I told you that all of human history, every war, every invention, every revolution, isn't just a jumble of random events? What if it's actually the story of a single planetary mind waking up? Yeah, I know. It sounds like science fiction, right? Can a civilization actually think? I mean, can a massive collection of people, millions or even billions of us, somehow form a single conscious entity? One that grows, learns, and maybe even dreams? That's the huge question we're going to try and unpack today.
So here's the core premise, the central idea that everything else is built on. Think about your own brain. It's made of billions of tiny neurons, all firing and connecting. Well, this new theory suggests that a civilization is basically the same thing, just on a massive scale. We, the people, are the neurons. And the way we communicate, the way we clash over ideas, and the way we create new things, it all follows a pattern that looks uncannily like the inner workings of our own minds.
Okay, so here's the game plan for how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll dig into that core analogy, this mind made of millions. Then we'll see how pressure builds up in a society. After that, we'll look at the three different states of a society's consciousness. We'll map out the entire life cycle of a civilization, then see how this plays out in real history with what the theory calls great awakenings. And finally, we'll bring it all home and ask the big one. Are we waking up right now? All right, section 1, a mind made of millions. Let's really get into this core analogy. The theory starts by drawing a direct line between the neural network in our skulls and a society's communication network. You know, everything from language and symbols to shared emotions and culture. Both of these systems, the brain and the society, are fundamentally designed to do the same thing: process information and manage tension. And that word tension brings us to a really crucial concept in this whole theory: social strain. Just think of it like stress, but for an entire society. It's the pressure that builds up when things get seriously out of whack. It could be a massive gap between the haves and the have-nots, or a government trying to control every bit of information, or even a deep clash between old traditional values and brand new ideas. It's that feeling that something's gotta give. So what happens with all of this pressure? How do societies actually process this strain? Well, it doesn't just sit there quietly. It flows through the social system, almost like an electric current, constantly looking for a way out, a release. And this is where the parallel to the brain becomes, well, incredibly direct. Inside our heads, when neural strain builds up, it gets released and the network actually reorganizes itself. In a society, that same strain release is what we call a revolution or a major reform. It's the event that forces a new social balance, a whole new equilibrium. Now, this release of pressure isn't always a giant explosion. It can happen on three different levels. Think of it like fixing a computer. A reform is like updating a single piece of software, just a minor adjustment. A reorganization is more like installing a whole new operating system. It changes how all the parts connect. But a revolution, man, that's like unplugging the whole thing, taking it apart and rebuilding it from the ground up. Okay, this next part is where it gets even cooler. This brings us to our third big idea, that an entire civilization, just like a single human mind, can exist in different states of consciousness. So you've got the unconscious state. This is a society running purely on instinct, myth, faith, and survival. Then there's the subconscious state. This is where reason starts to bubble up, creating things like laws, philosophy, and ethics that begin to challenge those old myths. And finally, you get to the conscious state. This is when a civilization becomes truly self-aware. It starts studying its own history, it understands its identity, and it actively thinks about its purpose and its future. So if a civilization can be conscious, does it also have a life cycle? You know, a beginning, a middle, and an end? According to this theory, absolutely. It maps out a pretty predictable path, moving from birth and growth all the way to a kind of societal deep sleep before it gets reborn into something new. And this life cycle plays out in 5 phases. It all starts with a birth, usually built on some powerful unifying myths. Then comes the growth phase. This is when it expands, trade flourishes, and laws get written down. After that, it hits its climax. This is the golden age where arts and sciences are flourishing, and it reaches that conscious state we just talked about. But that's often followed by decline, as the old ideas get tired and things start to fragment. And finally, you get the deep sleep or reset. The old order might collapse completely or just transform, but its memories are preserved, ready for the next cycle to begin. Okay, I know this all sounds pretty abstract, right? So let's get to the really compelling part. This is where we stop talking about theory and start seeing how it actually plays out in real history.
We're going to look at the great awakenings of the last 500 years. And this quote really gets to the heart of it. These huge historical events aren't just political conflicts. They're reframed as moments when a society as a whole wakes up. It's that surge from just passively being ruled to consciously taking control of its own destiny.
Just look at the pattern. In the 16th century, the Protestant Reformation was the release of strain between a single religious monopoly and the rise of individual faith. Then in the 17th, the scientific revolution was a massive clash between old dogma and the new idea of empirical evidence. Fast forward to the 18th century, the French Revolution pits the aristocracy against the radical concept of equality. And you see it again and again right up to today. Each one of these was a gigantic release of social strain, and every single one was caused by a fundamental imbalance of power.
When you look at it this way, you start to see this incredible repeating pattern, like an automatic waking up mechanism that's literally baked into our collective behavior. An imbalance of power builds and builds. That social strain eventually hits a critical tipping point, and then boom, a revolution or revival occurs. And out of that chaos, society reorganizes itself into a new, more stable equilibrium. Well, at least for a while, until the pressure starts building all over again.
So all of this history, this entire theory, it all leads us right back to the present moment and to our final biggest question. Are we, as a global civilization, in the middle of one of these massive awakenings right now? According to this model, yeah, we are. The theory suggests we are smack in the middle of a massive phase transition. The strain between the old world of industrial nation-states and the new, hyper-connected reality of a global digital ecosystem is reaching a breaking point. We could be transitioning toward the very first truly planetary consciousness, a global mind, aware of itself on a planetary scale for the first time in history. And that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. I mean, you can feel it, can't you? The social strain is building all around us. You see it in climate change, in the rise of AI, in the crazy political polarization. The pressure is absolutely undeniable. So if this pattern we've just explored holds true, then another awakening isn't just possible, it's inevitable. The only question left is, what's it going to look like?